Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Thank you so much for watching. This show is created to discuss life topics to hopefully challenge and transform your thinking. So today I have someone here who has been impacting my life in a very big way, and his name is Justin Schenck. And he helps coaches produce and monetize their podcasts and has been named the top 8 podcaster to watch and chosen as an icon of influence in this new media space. So, what started out to connect with top people and inspire others has become a way of life. And now he's getting played in over 100 countries every single week, and he is able to make a greater impact than he ever could imagine. So, that's huge, Justin. And did I say your name right? Is it Justin Schenck?
Oh, you killed it. I got real nervous. I always get nervous right before somebody says my name. You killed it. So thank you.
Okay, good. I'm like, I got to get this right. I mean, I listen to you all the time. I have to get this right. So Justin, the way I like to start off Straight Talk is just to have you introduce a little bit more of yourself. That's why I give such a short entry of you, because I want to get into the nitty gritty of who Justin is. So go ahead and let's start off with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a broad question, right? Like I feel it's so funny. I don't ever know how people should introduce me. I actually filled out a form one time to be on a podcast. This is like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And somebody was like, how do you like to be introduced? And I literally put in this questionnaire, I put Justin ? But for me, I identify myself as a podcaster, entrepreneur, and speaker. 5.5 years ago, I started podcasting, not really knowing what I was doing. And it's taken me on this wild journey. And that has led to, I own a podcast production coaching company, which you alluded to. I also help people overcome limiting beliefs and shifting their mindset and coaching from that standpoint. I host retreats, live events. Before COVID, I spoke all over the country on both podcasting and sharing my own personal story and journey. And I just feel blessed that I decided to buy a $60 microphone 5.5 years ago. And ended up being able to use that as my vehicle to really spread my purpose and my journey, and this whole entire thing, the way I believe that it took off because it lent into my purpose versus just something that I was doing. And when I originally had the idea for the podcast, I wanted to connect with entrepreneurs, similar to what it says in the bio. And I wanted to ask them the right questions for me so I could take that information and instill it into my life. Because at that point I had 3 failed businesses. And I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. The idea of this freedom sounds amazing. But clearly I'm not very good at it. And I keep failing. And then 5 months before I launched the podcast was the worst day of my life. And my mom lost a 20-year battle to opioids. And I remember walking into the hospital room and she was intubated in the hospital bed. And I remember just thinking there has to be so much more to life at that point. And it really sent me on a journey of understanding self-love, self-worth. How do you enjoy life even in those rock bottom moments? And even greater, how do you create your own purpose and your own passion from those rock bottom moments? And that's really what has become my platform, my podcast, and everything else in between.
It's amazing, right? When you go through something so traumatic, how it shifts your thinking and you can go one way or another, right? So it's, impressive that you decided to go, in the route of caring for yourself and also trying to impact the lives of others, as opposed to following, right, the footsteps of maybe getting into some addiction yourself. Was that something that you struggled with at all? Addiction at all in your
No,
lifetime,
it's
or?
funny. I shared with you before we hit record that I've never smoked weed in my life. And I just interviewed Ricky Williams, who's known as like a cannabis connoisseur.
Right.
But no, I didn't. And it's funny. People ask me all the time, like, how did you do that? And honestly, the statistics say that if your parent's an addict, you have a 50% chance of being an addict. And if your parent's in jail, you have 50% chance of being in jail. And what I didn't share was at one point in my life, my dad was actually in jail. And so you really add that up, like I'm 100% screwed at that point, right? Like you take the two pieces, slap them together, and who knows?
Right.
But I was fortunate in a sense when I was a child. Yeah, my parents had their own demons, but they were great parents, and they loved me and they supported me wholeheartedly. And I believe that was like the shift of like, why didn't I go down that road? Now, I will share with you when my mom passed away, like most people who go through grief and depression and sadness, I buried that in alcohol for about 3 to 4 months, where I was, with no joke, no exaggeration, I was blackout drunk 6 to 7 nights a week.
Wow.
And I was just numbing the pain, right? And my awakening was, I actually had a coach at the time who was a spiritual guru for me. And she called me one day out of the blue. It wasn't a day we were scheduled to talk. And I answered the phone and she was like, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going out with some friends." And she knew my patterns, and we talked about I was very aware of my patterns, right? Like I knew what I was doing. And she goes, no, you're not. She said, you're going to sit there and feel your shit. And so,
Oh,
sorry, can I curse?
yes,
Okay.
of course. This is
So she
straight
said,
talk.
yeah, she said, you're going to have to sit there and feel that shit tonight. And, it was one of
Oof.
the hardest nights of my life. And I did an
Also, you did it.
exercise.
You actually did it.
I did it. And I did an exercise where I wrote a letter to my mom, and sharing my anger and my happiness and all the things in between with her. And I set it on fire and I let it go. And, the next morning I woke up and was it all fixed? No, but I felt 20 pounds lighter and I
Hmm.
felt like, okay, now I can start moving forward. And so to answer your question, I didn't go down that road. There was a glimpse that I could have continued to go down
Hmm.
that road.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate enough that I had the right people around me to push me and make sure that I continued down the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, that sounded like a powerful moment, right? Because, I mean, let's be real. I mean, yeah, the spiritual, is it a female? I always
Yeah.
keep saying she. Okay. So
Yeah.
she, told you, nope, you're going to sit there and feel your shit. But the truth is you could have been like, Psh, I ain't feeling nothing.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, because you have the right to do that. So there's a drive in you, I think, naturally, right? So there's a drive in you that says, okay, I do have to sit here and feel this. I do have to conquer this, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that comes from the upbringing? Like, were you a sports player? Because I noticed that in a lot of sports players, like they are really like hyper focused and determined. I'm not a sports player, but I do notice that with my guests when I speak to them about,
Yeah,
you know,
it's something that came later in my life. I played sports as a young kid and I was actually
okay.
fairly decent at baseball. But I ended up breaking both of my hips when I was a kid. And so that took the sports away from me. But I think the mindset of that came later. So
Mm,
when I was 19, I got a job in direct sales because I also wasn't a good student. So college wasn't the path that I was taking. And I got a job in direct sales. And in that, number one, that was my introduction into, okay, I like this idea of being in control of making my own finances. But my mentor within that job handed me a book and it was called Who Moved My Cheese? And this
I
book was
love that
about, if
book.
it's amazing, right? And if you haven't read it or anybody listening hasn't read it, it's about things are going to happen around you. Change is going to happen that you have no control over, but what you have control over is your response to that change.
Yeah.
And that shifted my mindset to be like, okay, yeah, these things happened to me as a kid. Yeah, these things will continue to happen to me, but how am I going to change that? And I got this innate drive as I got older to really make an impact in the world. And I think at the end of the day, I kind of looked at myself and I said, look, you're not going to be able to make the impact you want to make if you go down this road. You can't play both
Mm,
sides of the fence, right? And so for me, it was that big vision, that big picture of where I want it to be, which was what I do now, speaking on stages and events and all this stuff that really got me out of that at a very quickly. And then I was able to kind of make those shifts. And so it wasn't the sports. It wasn't a young age thing. Like my parents were, it's funny. I got poor grades most of my life. And my parents were just kind of like, okay, study harder. Like there was not, I was never pushed from
right.
that standpoint. But it really, I think more than anything, it was understanding like I have this bigger vision in my life of where I want to be. And that was the driving force. Like, I need to snap out of this and kind of move forward.
Do you think that change and that shift in you made you a better entrepreneur as well? Because I know you said earlier, like, I need to change this. I have four failed things, blah, blah, blah. So does that help, that shift in your mind of like, I gotta do this.
100%. I mean, that
Hmm.
was so. I'll share this with you. So I've done now 370 plus episodes of my podcast, and I've
Wow.
talked to some of the top thought leaders and entrepreneurs and some billionaires and celebrities on my show. And there's a question that I ask every single person. It's a two-part question. The first thing is, what's your definition of success? And the second part is, what are three things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself? And I realized the pattern in the answer in that question wasn't the success part. But the second part of that is, what do you do every single day? And it was that they
Hmm.
poured into themselves, right? They did something for themselves every single day to make sure they could help others. And I realized what I was doing, I was trying to build this thing where I would help other people, but I wasn't helping myself.
That's
And so I
good.
think the big shift in that rock bottom moment of like, my mom was a great mom, but she didn't take care of herself. My mom was a great mom, but she didn't love herself. My mom was a great mom, but she didn't know that there was light at the end of the tunnel. And
Mm,
so when it all came to a screeching halt for her, I think it created that shift for me to be like, okay, these are the things I need to do. And so the biggest thing that I realized was, because I mean, from 19 to, I didn't really become a full-time entrepreneur till I was 33. So from 19 to 33, closer to 30. It was really, I was kind of lost. I was like, I
Hmm.
was taking in a bunch of information. Towards the end, I was listening to podcasts, but then I was reading books and I was doing all this stuff. But I wasn't taking any action, and I wasn't actually doing the things I had to do to become the person that I wanted to be in the public eye. And so, yeah, for me, it was really that a culmination of all of those things, that rock bottom moment mixed with, I need to start taking action if I don't want to end
That's
up
good.
unhappy when I die. And that's the main thing for me.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is because I feel like everybody has a different response, right? They think I always ask, like, do you think anybody can be an entrepreneur or can anybody just kind of drive themselves? And you get two different answers, right? Like one is no, no, you got to be born with that. It's in you. And then some people are like, well, you can kind of teach it. But I love what you said because it is a shift of the mind. It's literally you shifting your intention, your mindset, and saying, you know what, I'm bad at this, so let me work on this or let me switch that. Right. So, and
Yeah.
I know that that's huge for you because I follow you and I follow a lot of your podcast and what you do. And I know that you have something that you really focus on and you teach, which is the four pillars, right? Do you
Mhm.
mind if we get into that a little bit?
Yeah. I
Because
mean, I'd
I,
love
I
to.
love I love that teaching that you put out there in your podcast. You also do it in your retreats, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'd love to talk about that because I know that you have four that you really focus on.
Yeah.
Break it down, Justin. Break it
Yeah, it
down.
really, the four pillars came from, for the longest time, the growth now movement was about growing in all areas of your life. And I was like, what does that even mean?
Hmm.
And I looked back about a year ago, I looked back and I was like, what is this really? What is it that we're focusing on? Yeah, we were motivating people all over the world and people were coming to my events. And I was like, well, what is this really? Like, what are we changing? What are we shifting? And I realized that every single conversation I had, everything that I shifted in my life, to reach the fulfillment and happiness and success that I wanted was in these four pillars, and that is business slash finance, right? Your
Hmm.
finances, because it's not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
I think that's the big thing. I think that people who are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs thinks everybody wants to be, but that's just not the case.
So
But
true.
business and finances,
Right.
spirituality, wellness, and relationships. And I realized that these are the pillars in our life that we need to pour into daily in order to
Hmm.
get to that place in our life where we have fulfillment. And why do I talk about fulfillment versus success, or that goal that we all want to achieve, right? And I'm a believer in goals. I just don't think that they really matter at the end of the day. Yes, it gives you a direction, but goals don't matter, because if you have a goal for $1 million, God bless you, I want you to get there. But I promise you, when you get to 1 million, you're going to go, okay, how do I make 10 million?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's immediately what's going to happen. There's no
Yeah.
fulfillment in that. But the fulfillment is the things inside of you innately that you wake up every day and you actually want to live your life. And that is number one, making sure you're
That's
financially
good.
secure.
Hmm.
Number two, making sure you have the right relationships in your life, whether that's a significant other, friends, business partners, whatever, making sure that it's the right relationships. Your wellness. Look, we got to be healthy, right? Like, we want to make sure that we are headed in the right direction in our health. So that way, when we are older, because we're all going to get there, when we're older, we want to be able to enjoy life a little bit more than just sitting on the couch. And then
Right.
spirituality, which has become a huge pillar for me, because it was something that, growing up like in a church and being a Christian, being raised that way, spirituality was the big shift of like, oh, it's so much more than just an understanding or a mold or a pattern. Spirituality is the energy that flows around us, and
Hmm.
how do we make sure that this energy works in our favor instead of against us? Because a lot of times, if we're going against that energy, we've got no shot. And so if we're able to pour into those four pillars, we'll find fulfillment even if we haven't reached our goals. But here's the
That's
crazy
good.
part. Here's the crazy part about the four pillars. I realized that when we start focusing on just pouring into these four things daily, small increments of growth, the rest of the stuff tends to start chasing you. Money starts chasing you. The right people start to chase you. It becomes easier to make the healthier choice. Like,
Yeah.
it's unreal how working on it, all of a sudden it becomes super easy, and all of a sudden all these gifts start flowing into your life. And so the four pillars have become really the foundation of pretty much anything I talk about now. And like you said, we do these retreats that focus on them, and it's been a game changer, not only for me but also the people that I've taught.
Yeah, I bet it has because just listening to you when you are touching on these in your podcast and stuff has actually helped me too. And one of the things that you just said was that the things start chasing you. And I mean, you're so right. Ever since this year has started and I decided to shift my mindset and make, my podcast my thing and, all of that. And I even took your course and everything. I realize that people are reaching out to me now. They're actually emailing me and wanting to be on the show. And I'm like, wow, okay. You know what? And some of the things I find so easy that I'm a little scared that I'm doing something wrong, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, you're right. I think that big shift in your life in those four areas are super important. Do you believe in also being intentional about who you have around you? Because one of them is relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people talk about, really being, I guess, just taking out toxic people or anything like that. Do you believe in that there are toxic people or people that can come in and kind of like throw you off track?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super intentional with who I spend my time with. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is, it's the most draining thing for me when I spend time with people who aren't on the same course as me. I don't mean at the same level of success. I don't mean any of that. I just mean with
Right.
how's their mindset, right? And we're talking, and here's the hard part for people to understand. When I talk about the relationship pillar and saying, look, you need to shift your relationships. I'm talking about your parents too. I'm talking about your siblings too.
Mm,
I'm talking about
mm.
these people that can potentially be a massive drain on you, and you don't even realize it because like, oh well, it's my mom. I have to be super close to them, or oh, it's my dad. That's just how it is. It's not. And there
I'm
was a
so
moment
glad
in
you
my
said that.
life a long time ago that I chose not to talk to my father, and I didn't talk to my dad for 7.5 years. And now we're super
Wow.
close. I was the best man at his wedding, all these things. But for 7.5 years, we didn't say one word to each other. And actually, him and I had a conversation a number of years ago, and he goes, I missed you those 7 years. But I'm so glad you made the choice you did because you broke generational habits. And so during that time,
Mm,
he grew and I grew. And that is the power sometimes of cutting the cord on these terrible relationships you're having. And it doesn't always have to be so cut and dry. Here's what
right.
happens when you begin to level up your life. These people who tend to be toxic, they'll fall off on their own. It becomes pretty seamless. They'll stop reaching out because they're just not on your level and they're afraid of your success, and they just kind of let themselves go. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, focusing on pouring in who are the people I want to spend my time with. The people that are the negative in your life, they'll find their way out.
You're so right. And I'm really glad you said that because it's uncomfortable at first, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable for you. It's definitely uncomfortable for them. But I couldn't agree with you more. Like I say the same thing as some people are always like, oh, that's so mean. No, it's not. I just don't want that toxicity next to me, even if it's family. So I'm also very intentional. I've gone that way in the last maybe 10 years, and I've realized the shift in my mindset. I used to struggle a lot with depression, anxiety, and all that kind of stuff. But once I started to like shift that, it started to like fall off too. So it's not just the people fall off,
Yeah.
right? But that energy and the people around you that have that toxicity on them, that falls off too. And then before you know, you're like, whoa, I should have done this 20 years ago, not
Yeah.
10, right? So that
Yeah.
is really huge. I mean, you must see such a transformation when you do these retreats, especially because I know, podcasts, we listen to you and then we're off to your next episode.
Yeah.
But in your retreats, you're sitting there with them, right? Are you there with them for a couple days or how do you run that?
Yeah, so the retreats go a couple of days. We've only done one so far. The retreats really came about because of COVID. So what ended up happening was I would do these live events, and what ended up happening was COVID happened, and I was like, I'm drawn to this idea of making a massive impact in people's lives, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it with the live events, and I was like, how do I go even deeper? And so COVID presented me with the opportunity, again, understanding that change is going to happen around us. How do we adjust to it? To do these retreats. And we just did the first one in Philadelphia, and there were 10 attendees, and we keep them small on purpose. This next one's 18, which is a little bit bigger, but we have more space.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're there the whole time. I co-run it with my girlfriend, who's actually a holistic wellness coach and a yoga instructor, and my friend, who's actually a spiritual guru and business medium. And it was life changing. We're literally there the whole time. Like at night, we're sitting around in our pajamas,
That
chatting and
sounds like
sipping on
fun.
coffee and having
Mm-hmm.
a good time. And the real impact that I saw was really amazing, and it's still happening. We're in a Telegram group together still from the retreat that we wrapped up a couple weeks ago, And I mean, they're still having massive shifts in their life because they
Wow.
made the choice to get in there, right? We actually had a girl who was engaged um, when she came to the retreat. And the day after the retreat, she decided to end the engagement and move back from Florida back to Pennsylvania, because we realized that these relationships aren't for us. Now, here's the crazy part. We didn't talk about our engagement the whole weekend at all. Like, it wasn't like you need to leave him. Like, it was
Right.
never that. It was, she realized that this was the toxicity in her life and she needed to get rid of it.
Wow.
And so one thing that I realized is that we all have limiting beliefs in our life, right? And in those four pillars, at any given moment, we all have at least a limiting belief in one of those four pillars,
Yeah.
like at any time. And I don't care
Hmm.
what level you're at. Like, I have friends who make half $500 million a year, and they have limiting beliefs. Um, and there's a 3-step process that I realize works every single time to get out of your limiting beliefs and start to make massive growth and shifts in your life. And the first thing is get uncomfortable. And the getting uncomfortable can be investing in a coach, buying a course, going to a retreat and investing in that. It could
Mm.
be ending a relationship. It could be leaving your job to go full-time in entrepreneurship, whatever it is. Like, that's the first step, get uncomfortable. Step 2 is surround yourself with the right people. That's literally having people support
So
you
good.
through the process, the people that can help you, whether it be a coach or a mentor or people within your community that are at the next level. Surround yourself with them. And number 3 is take action. And if you can figure out those 3 things, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. You can figure out those 3 things, you're going to succeed every single time. You know, I had a limiting belief that I just overcame in the beginning of this year, which was in the wellness pillar. My whole life, ever since I was 12 years old and broke my first hip, I struggled with weight, and I would go up and down in weight, up and down, up and down, up and down. I was a yo-yo dieter, right? I could lose it. I couldn't keep it off. And I looked back and I said, why can't I keep this off? Why
Mhm.
can't I be physically fit? Why can't I do these things? And it triggered a memory from when I was probably 14 at this point, because I broke my second hip when I was 14.
Wow.
But the doctor said to me, you're never going to be an athlete, because he knew
Oh,
I was all about baseball. Will I ever play baseball again?
wow.
He's like, and he said, you're never going to be an athlete. And so the end of 2020, I started saying to myself, that's what it is. And so I go, why am I allowing my 12-year-old self to tell my 36-year-old self what I can and
Wow.
can't do? And so I decided to do those 3 steps. And number 1 was I got uncomfortable, and I committed to doing 75 hard,
Oh, yeah. I
which is a
remember you were
program
doing
created
that.
by Andy Frisella. It was amazing and crazy all at the same
Yeah,
time.
I remember.
Um, yeah, and I'll break down really quick what that is for people who don't know that are listening. It's 2 45-minute workauts a day. One must be outside. Now, keep in mind, I did this in January and February in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania,
That's why I
in the
thought you were
snow.
crazy.
No, it's insane. It's a gallon of water, 10 pages
Oh,
of self-help book, no cheat meals, no alcohol, and a progress photo
wow.
every single day for 75 days straight. And if you mess up any of those things, one of the days, you have to start over at day 1.
Oh, my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, it's crazy. So I
Did you do
said,
all 75?
I did. So I did all
Wow.
75. I lost upwards of 30, close to 30 pounds. I'm in
Wow.
the best shape of my life, and it's completely shifted my mindset. I'm out of the I can't be an athlete anymore, because day 1, literally day 1, I said to my
Wow.
girlfriend, I go, I'm an athlete. And she goes, yeah, you are, babe. And so that was the second phase of that. How do you do it? Number 1, get uncomfortable. Number 2, surround yourself with the right people. She did it with me, and she supported me wholeheartedly. And number 3, take action. I took action. And I was not only able to just lose the weight, I was able to really shift my mindset of who I am when it comes to wellness and physical fitness. Now, am I going to be
Wow.
the person who goes out there and teaches others how to get abs and do the thing? No, that's not who I want to be. But I know that now I can overcome anything when it comes to physical presence. And so
Right.
that's really, I know this is the longest answer you've ever expected.
No, that's
Um,
awesome.
but this is the whole thing, right? The 4 pillars and the overcoming limiting beliefs and how they're all connected is a proven pattern that I've done multiple times in my life, and my clients and people with the retreats, and it's been life changing.
How do you deal with, though, Justin? Like, not everything is always so rosy, right?
Yeah.
So what are you doing on those days that you don't freaking feel like it? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I know that when you did those 75 hard, there must have been a day you were like, F this. I don't want to do it. I know I
Yeah.
would have been me. I would have been like, don't you dare tell me to go outside one more time. So how do
Yeah.
how do you reset yourself? Like, do you have like a routine that you do? Like, do you pause? Are you in prayer? Like, what's your routine to get through stuff like that, tough times?
Yeah. So to go to the first part, there were plenty of days where I didn't want to do it. I actually hurt my Achilles tendon during
Oof.
75 hard, and I still did it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is to set yourself up for success, right? Number one, surrounding yourself with the right people who are going to
Yeah,
encourage you,
that's
not
huge,
tear you
isn't it?
down.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot different when you're like, I don't want to do this. And somebody goes, no, you got this, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, we're doing this together, or you got this, or whatever. That's huge. I mean, for me, knowing again the big picture, like I don't. People ask me like, "Oh, where are you going to be in 5 years? Like, what's your goal?" I don't really have goals, but I have a vision of who I want to be.
Mm,
And so I knew that I had this vision that I tied myself to of at the end of 75 hard, this is who I want to be. And that vision drove me to not quit, to not give up, to not whatever. Plus, I made it accountable. I talked about it on the podcast. I talked about it on
yeah.
other podcasts. I've talked about it with my friends. And here's the cool part. Actually, about 5 or 6 of my close friends are doing it now. And so it was one of those moments of like, not only did I do it, but then I inspired others to do it too. So it's like a cool little like thing, right? And still, for me, I think it's a bunch of different things, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
But for me, when I surround myself with the right people and I have that big vision, I win every single time, and nothing's really going to stop me from reaching that next level.
Wow, that seems like that's like one of the biggest pieces too of the four pillars that you teach, right? Is I think you kind of do have to start yourself off with the right relationships because I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going to help the business, the finance, the wellness, the spirituality, right? So that's huge. I heard you say that like a few times. So I'm definitely taking that away, right? It's who you surround yourself with. So that's cool. Now I will share a little secret with you. I have definitely been thinking about the 75 hard since I've been following you because since I listened to your podcast, you've talked about it a few times. I'm a punk though, Justin. I am a punk ass. I don't want to, I go lie. I was at boot camp yesterday. I barely could walk today. Like, I don't know about that. Maybe I'll do a hard 10 days or something. I don't know about the
Well,
75.
and that's a great place to
Oh
start,
my
right?
gosh.
Like can you do it for 10 days? Can you do it for 30 days? Can you do it for 60 days? Like, it's a
Yeah.
great place to start. I'm really big. I've always been really big on like following and checking things off. So
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
with the workouts is like I literally created a whole entire calendar with like what workouts am I doing every day. So one of the workouts, mind you, was a 45-minute walk outside. So we walk about 3.2 miles every morning, which is something that I started to do before. So we kind of primed ourselves for it. So
Yeah.
back in July of last year, we started walking every morning, and slowly built
That's
ourselves up to
good.
get to that 45 minutes. And so that was kind of the primer. And so that was like, we still walk every morning, by the way. And so that was the easy thing. The first one was the easy thing. I found at the end of it, I thought it was going to be the cheat meals. Like for me, I'm like, I love wings and pizza and
Right.
burgers and all that stuff. And so I thought it was going to be the cheat meals, but it ended up being the second workout. There were certain days where I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Um, but the nice part is with again, creating that check mark off for yourself. I had the schedule, and then there's actually a 75 hard app that you check everything off every day. And apparently, if you fail, there's a picture of Andy, who's a badass looking dude. He's actually over my shoulder right here. He's been on the podcast. But it's like him being like, "Oh, you effing failed. Start over, day one tomorrow."
Oh
And
man.
so like it's crazy. And so I didn't want to see that.
Right.
I didn't want to
I
fail.
was gonna, I was gonna ask if you saw it, but you didn't because you did the whole thing. And
Yeah.
kudos to your girlfriend too, man. She's supporting you and she's been there with you, and I think that that is huge, right? And it helps you just strive every single day for even better. So, Justin, kudos to you, man. So,
Oh, thank you.
before I'm gonna let you go, I want you to please let us know how we can follow you, how we can support you. Also know more about your events because I'm telling you, your event, the Growth Now, the virtual one,
Yeah.
huge. I have like that much notes. I even have been sending it to people like, oh my gosh, I missed day one. I'm like, I got all the notes. I got you.
I
You know,
got you.
got you. I got the notes. You had great speakers. It was a phenomenal event, like
Oh,
really.
thank you. Yeah,
So
thank you.
please let us know how we can keep following you.
Yeah, obviously wherever they listen to this podcast, they can go check out the Growth Now movement. And I hang out on Instagram a lot with at Justin T Schenck. That's really the best two places where you can
Hmm.
find me. And yeah, thank you so much for saying that about the events. It really is my heart and soul that I pour into them. And um, I just can't wait to do a live one again where, like I said, in 2019, we did the first one and we had people come from 15 states in Canada to attend. We had
Wow.
celebrity speakers and all these amazing people. And It was literally a day and a half long rock concert for entrepreneurs and forward thinkers, and people really looking to level up in their life. I just can't wait to do it again.
I can't wait for you to do it because I'm going to be there. I mean,
Yes.
just virtual was amazing. So I need to be there in person because that energy alone was, yeah. Justin, you're doing a phenomenal job, man.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Neena. By the way, you're phenomenal at this. So thank you so much for
Oh,
having
thank
me
you.
on and having this conversation. It means a lot.
I appreciate you and I appreciate all of you too. So make sure that you don't forget to subscribe. Go ahead and leave a comment. Don't forget to follow Justin because he is going to be worth your earbuds and your time. Thank you guys so much. Until next time.